So over the last 3 years, I've been obsessed with productivity systems. Yes, literally obsessed. Ever since the fall of 2019, I've listened and read every single podcast, interview, talk by David Allen and consumed his books multiple times. I felt like he had all the answers I needed to live a happy and fulfilling life. So I created this context list, I made a project list with all the next actions, grabbed a small notebook to write down stuff every day, and did this long clarification session and organizing everything afterwards each day. And of course weekly reviews too. But come June 2020, I discovered Cal Newport and his more controlled, this more planned way of productivity, and I immediately ditched getting things done altogether as I felt it was not working for me at that time. I started time block instead, managed my time instead of managing lists, and it worked well for a year sort of. Then I discovered Tiago Forte and his way of looking at productivity, which was more just in time, more component thinking, and not necessarily needing these big focus blocks in order to be massively productive, which I really like. So now I got 3 conflicting methodologies, 3 conflicting systems I didn't know what to do. So then in November, I started to blog about my own productivity system called One Glance. But in February, I read Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb and immediately ditched my old productivity system and built up my barbell system instead, which I wrote a book about. So yeah, I'm obsessed with productivity systems. Do you know what's funny with all these years of obsessing over productivity? Now I feel like my barbell system, which was promised to be the simplest and most effective productivity system, is no longer working. I don't think it's working for everyone. So in this depth tutorial video, the 50th special on this channel by the way, we will together learn and create the simplest productivity system for you. Yes, you, your own unique system that you can be proud of. From first principles that you can apply today to get the most return for least effort possible. So let's start off with having no system at all, no calendar, no task manager, no note-taking app, and see how we feel, trying to remember everything only in our heads. And I don't know about you, but for someone like me who had done productivity system like religiously for the past 3 years, I can immediately tell the difference. I feel overwhelmed and I cannot focus on anything because I have these instant reminders in my head what I must do all the time. Imagine that you're a glass and water is all relevant information about ourselves, our work, what to do next, etc. So at some point the glass becomes full because our memory capacity is very low, especially when it comes to working memory and psychic RAM and all that stuff. When I still pour water into it, there's a lot of water coming out all the time. And yes, it will be perfectly fine, just accept that it was it is, but I feel like we instinctively want to remember because, you know, it's ourselves. And would not be nice if I did not need to waste all my experience and my thoughts, and maybe I could think about it like once again and never again, not having to constantly turn on the tap every time. But if you have a bottle, I can put all water into this. I can have multiple bottles and instantly retrieve that water whenever I want to, and I can keep this glass somewhat empty at all times and experience the space and freedom inside it, and imagine that the space and freedom is in your own head too. And this bottle, this thermos, is what a productivity system should do for us. It should help us to be in the present moment and allow us to safely forget anything else. We no longer need to remember all that stuff because it's written right here, right in front of us. And this I feel has been deeply missed in the productivity world. This necessity to forget all the time is much more scalable to offload to intelligent systems than to use our own storage, our own limited memory card, call it that. We can also gain perspectives. You don't need to be in the weeds all the time. We can sort of get more clarity of the situation, stuff like that, which are good things too. So the perfect productivity system should allow us to 1, forget all the time and be in the present moment. 2, it should allow us to know exactly where we are, like Google Maps, to going straight into like the GPS, and also how we can plan out the step-by-step plan from right now and go forward so we can keep momentum very high. And it should also be as easy as possible to maintain it because, you know, like the easier something is to do, the more likely you are to actually do it, and we want to actually do it. So, and of course that must be unique to your specific needs because remember, it's your system we are doing. If you can get all of this right and get it to work, even if you are too worse, like for instance at a party and the day after and you sort of feel miserable, but it still works, you don't need to feel miserable anymore. I feel like this mind-like warrior state, like David Allen talks about, will be accessible for all of us. But we need to set up some criteria for when we know when our productivity system is working, because otherwise we just adapt to old habits and be miserable when we don't want to. So as you can see in these requirements right here, we want all of them to work. So an ideal productive day should then look like this. You wake up fresh with new ideas, like you write them down. You also know that you do not need to come up with ideas, so you can instantly access them when you need to. And the productivity system so become your activity log, where you see what's happening right now while you don't even think about that it's happening. So sort of reflecting, very good reflection. And whenever something bad happens, you not react tense or get emotional, and because you have such a clear mind, you adjust immediately the system and start executing, and it reacts to feedback and adapts itself very perfectly. And you feel joyful, you feel light, and see endless possibilities all around you. Can fully dedicate to this one thing that will give you all the success in this world. And when you go to bed, you sleep instantly, and or at least treat the bed like a well-deserved spa experience. And with that said, we now have the success criteria, and we can build a productivity system from there. The easiest possible system is just something to type, whether it's pixels on the screen or ink on the paper. And digitally, this is where note-taking apps kicks in. Their sole function is to store and retrieve everything you write into it and nothing else. Simple as that. And I made many videos about it we can check right here in this playlist, so you can check it out whenever you want to decide which note-taking app you want to use. But long story short, it doesn't really matter what you pick as long as you use it. And the same goes with paper-based solutions too, whether it's notebooks or something else. So what should you type then? Here's the general rule. Just type anything you think right now and do not want to forget. It could be time related, goal related, something particularly interesting, an idea you got, something you want to say to a particular person. All that stuff is just lingering around as open loops, you know what I mean? Also, if you're unhappy for some reason, whether it's anger, fear or hopelessness, you can write down exactly what you think. This is basically cognitive behavior therapy in a nutshell, which has been proven time and time again to be the most effective behavioral tool to feel better about the situation. And you might know why by now, and this is because you can forget all the accusations, forget all the self-talk and worst case apocalypse scenarios that we generate for ourselves. We can see faster what to do about it. We get perspective. And now you might think,
Oscar, are you really telling me that everything I want regarding happiness and productivity all comes down to writing down stuff from note-taking app every day?
And yes, that's correct. By allowing you to forget, you can enter this mental state of just being in the zone, which is the ultimate place for total engagement, happiness, or being effective in general. Very nice place. But before we go even further with evolving this rather primitive system, because remember, we're only dealing with the note-taking app so far, I want to emphasize a very important caveat, something that took me years to learn and probably will spare me a lot of unnecessary suffering, so keep that in mind. I feel like many people are intimidated by all this because of the mere act of writing down. Like, imagine if you think 6,200 thoughts a day and try to write them all down. It's not working, like from a practical standpoint. And in reality, you should not write any thoughts down. You only want to write down the most important thoughts, the one that you cannot forget. But again, if you feel stressed or unhappy, you can write down even more as some kind of a self-therapy. So you don't need to feel this cloud of guilt that you're not writing stuff down all the time, which is something a very common trap for everyone who loves productivity, especially me, who are sort of like, okay, why am I not productive? Why am I not writing things down? Why am I still thinking? We don't want that. We want to still drive. We want to still swim. We want to still exercise, talk to people, stuff like that, without constantly writing. You know, that would be practical. And the note-taking app is not the goal. It's just a safety net for you to be totally irresponsible and forget everything and stuff like that. Have some fun, really. Also, one thing that's extremely useful when it comes to working on actual work is to remove information. Remove stuff for bullet points that you're using right now. And this is because you want what you're looking for to accurately reflect the thought process inside you. And I'll give you an example. This is one of the scripts I'm working on as I'm recording this, and as you can see, there are some bullet points, just some words here and there. And whenever I develop these bullet points to text, I remove that bullet point. So I need to think all the time, like, have I used it or have I not used it? It does not get cluttered. That's the main goal here. So once again, every single productivity system starts with a note-taking app or note-taking list or whatever. The easiest way to track your time is to literally just create a note with today's date and write, okay, after breakfast I'm going to do this, and after lunch I'm going to do this, and all that stuff. Just simple words, like if you would tell your significant other or your friend. But as you continue to expand and all your tasks become more and more complex, you get more and more of them, these are the ways you can develop your system with still keeping it as easy as possible. So now we're going from level 1 to level 2 and level 3 and so forth. As soon as you have an appointment or something that needs to be done or at a fixed time or a fixed date, the calendar is an excellent tool. Visually see how long it takes in the grid. And yes, you can block your entire day with everything you want to, but the problem is as soon as everything changes, you need to reschedule this whole thing, and especially when you're working out like in the moment and have all these balls to juggle, it's not really a priority to sit down and use the calendar in order to plan the day again, and that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. So we need something way easier. Or you can create like multiple grids with standard time block planners. You need to sort of carry it around with you, and I find it just easy to just write again in the note-taking app. Okay, this is what I'm going to do now and so forth. So calendar is the best if there is some appointment or some meeting or some day-specific information that does not really change, which would just be the hard landscape, as David Allen puts it. So you don't need to think about them again, so you can schedule your day around that. Then we got all these tasks, all these projects that need to be done. And usually you only need to distinguish between things not done and things done. And task managers, their sole responsibility is to show you what has been not done and what has been done. What's been not completed and what's been completed. You can literally check them off, so it's very easy that way. But if you need multiple statuses, like when not done and done is no longer sufficient, like if there are some multiple processes, you can use Kanban boards or other table solution, which Notion really is a pioneer with that. And currently I use a Kanban board for these YouTube videos, which I can drag during each stage of the process. So if you got a very complex chain of different steps to take, these ones are perfect for that. Task managers, not really, because you only got 2 options. And then when it comes to these big projects, like those who take weeks, months, or even years to complete, it can be a lot of information involved and even a lot of people involved. And the easiest way I've found is to simply create notes, spreadsheets, other tools like Asana or stuff like that, whatever, with the same name as a task and project. In there you can put all the links, status updates, who does what, plans, allocations, etc. So whenever you hear people talk about projects, managing projects, it all comes down to like managing this information and accurately reflect them and stuff like that. So more information for each task, that's really the complexity of it. There can also be multiple tasks for each project. Like let's say if you need to move from a different location to another apartment or house or something and have to fix everything in terms of transport, cleaning and contract, etc. A lot of moving parts. And in this case you can add a description for each task, but only do that if you feel like you need to. If you just intuitively know, like,
getting keys is obviously related to this housing project.
You don't need to write any extra stuff. And in terms of tasks and sort of sorting and filtering these tasks themselves, context lists are very popular since they can help you filter out these tasks you can do at the moment. But today in 2022, you can pretty much do anything you want from your phone. And if not from your phone, you can do it from your computer. So the only context list you really need is anywhere, something you can just pick up and execute upon, and then you got your computer, and then your home or some other place like you visit often, like your office and gym, etc. So once again, if you don't have a lot of tasks, it's perfectly fine to just have one task list and go from there. But if you have multiple tasks, it can be much easier to just visualize. And here's the one like you use on the computer, and here's the one on the phone, etc. So when should you check your task manager? This is the eternal question. And during all my 3 years of experimenting, as I told in the beginning of this video, I only found two schools of thoughts that really work. Either you set aside a couple of minutes each day, could be in the morning, could be after you're working, or in the evening and stuff like that, in which you just look at your task and just see and create a plan like, okay, tomorrow I want to do this, like after breakfast, after lunch, so and so many hours, maybe schedule the calendar and stuff like that. Or if you're more experienced with productivity system, if you know like, okay, this is how I feel like when I not have my system versus how I feel when I have my system, you can adjust your plan whenever you need to. Whenever you hear that thought that is concerning the next day, then you can treat it as a signal like, now it's time to update the daily note for tomorrow. But if you're new to this, I recommend setting up just a couple of minutes. Like, for instance, you can couple it with, for instance, brushing your teeth, because it's so easy to miss out the feeling and sort of let the whole thing accumulate, which you not want again. So if you're new to this, just set aside the time each day. And one popular term within productivity is the weekly review, in which you try to sort of batch everything together. But what usually happens, my experience from all these 3 years, is that there are so many days which you feel not clear. Like, imagine if you have 1 day per week in which you're trying to clear out the room. You're still going to have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in which just feel cluttered. An even better way would be to sort of clean it all the time, or maybe even clean it each day and so forth. And thanks to the simplicity of this system, the simplicity of just writing whenever you think you need to write and stuff like that, you don't need to wait until this extra weeks or so, because it's literally on the phone. You can treat it as an activity log. So then you got this just-in-time element again, which has revolutionized manufacturing, and I feel it's revolutionizing productivity as we speak. So once again, a couple of designated minutes every day, we just do feel like we need to if you're more advanced and know how you feel or not feel. And then we got timers. It could be any sort of timer, like for instance Pomodoro technique, or even the Forest app, which has been very popular for very good reason, because you get some feedback on how you're doing. One of the most common blockers of being present and in the flow state is the fearing of sort of losing everything, losing track of everything, and sort of being not responsible, blowing off the schedule, and just cannot really attend to the task. But if you set up a timer every time you sit down to work, or even at parties, yes, I do it, you don't need to worry about time at all. Like, you just drop into flow knowing that the timer is there to tell you, like, okay, time is up, now you want to do something else, and there you can adjust if you still want to do it or not, but at least you get the feedback. But if you also want to know how long everything takes, you can also use stopwatches, or ideally a tracking tool. I've been experimenting with an app called Toggle Track, I think you can pronounce it that way, which is simple and works for me, in which you can literally punch a button and type like whatever you're doing right now, and then you can see, okay, this is how long it took and stuff like that. And in terms of productivity system, that's pretty much everything you need. So you can see that it evolved from just a note-taking app to all these other tools. Of course, you can write down your goals, your visions, your purpose. You can do that in separate notes too. But one thing I learned particularly from my biggest idol, Alex Hormozi, was the importance of focus. People assume that they should be involved in as much as possible, taking multiple bets to see if the one will take off, but you can make anything work and become successful as long as you stick to it and not distract yourself, not giving in to the boredom and do other kinds of stuff. And this is how everyone, at least according to Hormozi and many other successful people, this is how they become successful super fast. By doing one thing for an uncommon long period of time without convincing others or themselves that they're smarter than they are. So this is why I preach simplicity, because the more simple, the less overhead and more time to do the actual thing. And that's something I feel especially GTD does a little bit wrong, or maybe just my impression. If so, let me know in the comments, with adding as many projects as possible, like mentioning that you need 30 to 100 projects or 150 to 250 tasks, and you think, okay, I need so many tasks in order to feel productive. But that's a little bit wrong. I mean, you want just only 1 or 2 or 5 you can dedicate all your time and all your weeks and all your years to. That's just how you really get ahead. So just keep things simple and say no. So now I'm going to sum up everything we learned and how you can evolve your very own productivity system that's uniquely yours. It all starts with forgetting. You want to offload your working memory all the time so you can be present. If you not do that, no productivity system will ever work. That's so important. And I'm actually going to make a follow-up video of forgetting as a skill, because you want to trust your stuff, your tools so much so you can allow yourself to lose yourself in whatever you're doing. This is how you get into the flow state. So stay tuned for that video. So if you have any idea, any thought, any self-talk that you cannot forget or feel very stressful or distracted at this point, you can use it as a signal to simply type down exactly what you think. The whole purpose with the productivity system is to allow you to know where you are at right now and what are the very next steps. And the easiest way to do it is just to create a note for each day that you write down stuff like, after breakfast I'm going to do this and this and this, and after lunch I'm going to do that, and so forth. Write as much as you need to do and write such as you need to think about for your day. Then if you want or need to evolve your system a bit further, aside from just a daily note, you have a couple of tools. You have a task manager, which you can put everything, which can either be categorized as done or not done. And if that's not enough, you can use Kanban boards or similar. You have also the calendar, which you can put meetings and appointments or things at specific times and not necessarily change often. And then you got the timer, which allows you to forget everything right now, but just get into the zone, which is the ultimate goal. But above all else, you got this basic note-taking app, which just simply write down everything you don't want to forget. But write down only the most important stuff and forget the rest. You don't need to write all the time. That's not what we want here. And that's it really. You might be surprised at how simple these productivity systems can be. You want to evolve your systems from scratch to your own specific needs and wants, and not necessarily implement the final package like GTD or Capture Configure Control or even my Babel system for that matter. Yes, I'm serious. Your system is what's the most important. And you want to be proud of what you yourself are creating. And as a final note, let's revisit the ideal day again with everything you learned. First, you wake up fresh with new ideas and can write them down on a note-taking app. You don't need to sort of write all the time, but know okay, whenever I need something, I just write and then it all comes down from there. And then the productivity system becomes an activity log that you see reflecting okay, this is what's happening at the moment. You need to think, you can just look. And whenever something bad happens, you not react or tense, you get emotion. And you feel joyful, you feel light because you don't need to think about everything. You see endless possibilities all around you. And when you go to bed, you sleep instantly, or at least treat the bed like a well-deserved spa experience. So once again, this is a huge topic, probably decades of thinking from various people around the world. Let's just simplify together in this video. So I feel like there could be something I missed. So if you have any questions or feedback in general, like how you want to tweak your system in a particular way, you can write down in the comments and I answer them, even in the comments, or make a follow-up video to get, because as you know, I'm very passionate about productivity systems. So that's pretty much everything I think of. And I sincerely hope that you have everything you need to create your own productivity system that's uniquely yours, that you can be very proud of, and start being productive.